The creek was very much a part of our lives. My sister and I and all the various children that lived around here, because we would play in it and watch the water coursing by during the winter after there had been rains, and we would just kind of build little houses and little streets, and I would take some toy cars down and we'd just make our own little village, our own little play area.
75 years ago, Sycamore Creek was more than just a fun place for kids to play. It was a direct connection to nature.
Sometimes we would walk in the dry creek to go under the highway. It was not a freeway then, and so we would walk all the way down to where the creek came out near Dwight Murphy Field and just go to East Beach and just spend the summers there.
But the 20th century wasn't kind to urban watersheds. It was a time when development took priority over the natural environment, the impacts of which can be seen today. A case in point can be found at the base of the watershed, where Sycamore Creek and what is now known as the Andre Clark Bird Refuge used to be connected.
It connected to the bird refuge, and during the summer months when there was not much flow, they were probably connected all the time and had water between the two. In the winter months when there's more rain and the mouth of Sycamore Creek broke through, there would be probably even less water in the bird refuge than there is now, because it would drain out. It would look more like Devereaux Slough at that point.
But that important relationship ended when the two were separated at the birth of an iconic roadway.
When they built Cabrillo, they straightened Sycamore to come straight out to the ocean, and then they straightened the mouth of the bird refuge to go straight out to the ocean also. So they became disconnected at that point.
The unintended consequences of that separation can not only be seen, they can be smelled.
They put basically a dam or a weir at the mouth of the bird refuge to pool up water so that they would have an open water feature, and that's when it became called the bird refuge. And so the ducks like it for sure, it's a big open water. But immediately after they did that, we started getting odor issues with the bird refuge, and they haven't stopped since.
That pattern of altering a creek for progress, only to discover negative results, was repeated with the construction of bridges for the next big roadway project, Highway 101.
Those bridges were undersized for the creek, so when it flooded, it would create flooding issues for the highway and for the communities around there once those bridges were built.
To reduce flooding, the city, county, and state have been doing flood control and bridge replacement projects along Sycamore Creek for the last few years. During each of these projects, the Creeks Division has worked with the lead agency to help strike a balance between flood control, habitat improvement, and water quality.
We try to work with them to widen the creek channel and put in some natural vegetation and trees so that we improve habitat and water quality and expand the channel for flood capacity.
Major restoration and water quality projects on the Sycamore watershed have been few and far between, simply because there isn't a lot of publicly owned land on the watershed to do them on. Long-term change, however, is occurring in the form of the Stormwater Management Program. The Stormwater Management Program, or SWIMP, is the city's response to state and federal water quality standards requirements.
And part of those are for us to regulate new and redevelopment of the city. The bottom line is we're trying to get them to retain some of the water on their parcel rather than run it all off into the streets and the creeks and into the ocean quickly.
When runoff is slowed down and allowed to soak in, it gets filtered naturally, and it helps recharge groundwater supplies.
Theoretically, doing that on a lot of parcels in a watershed will slow down the amount of runoff coming off of the properties and in the watershed during flood events, and so that can help with flooding issues.
But flooding isn't the only challenge for the Sycamore Creek watershed. Like all the lower watersheds in the city, litter is a recurrent issue, one that the Creeks Division spends a lot of time and resources on.
Yeah, we do trash pickup all the time on Sycamore Creek. We do have some homeless issues on Sycamore Creek, like all our creeks, and so we clean up those.
However, the Creeks Division isn't the only one picking up trash on the watershed, as we discovered on a recent coastal cleanup day.
Do you want to take this one for recycling too?
It's a day where all over California, people come together to go clean up the beaches, and I'm out here at East Beach, and I'm with an organization called Tomorrow's Green, and there's a lot of young people coming out today to help out.
Going forward, the Creeks Division will continue to look for opportunities to improve conditions on the Sycamore Creek watershed. At the same time, it's up to all of us to affect change in the little ways, like increasing permeability on our properties, reducing pollution, and, like the generations before us, appreciating the gifts we have.
I personally really love East Beach. I also love playing volleyball, and ever since I was young, I've always really cared about the environment, and it's always been a very important cause for me. I also think it really benefits the community, and I just want to be a part of it and help how I can.